Mighty Morphin Conspiracy Theories. I'm not really hiding the motivation here, and for those who really don't want to talk about this subject, I'm sorry, but I have to. Now, I've discussed two parts of this theory in two different videos, and I've heard about every single argument imaginable about why Zordon isn't evil, but I wanted to make one cohesive video to put all that together because people are arguing one subject on one video that is actually answered on the other video and vice versa. Hey guys, my name's Casey. I'm a fan of the whole entire Power Ranger franchise and I just love it and I love discussing this stuff with you guys. But before I start berating you with liking, subscribing, putting your credit card information down below, I want to make sure I'm upfront with you. This is a subject that people get pretty fired up about, and I'm just going to be honest and tell you that when I see people using vulgar language, cursing, calling people names in the comments, or just being outright rude, I go to their profile and I stop them from commenting on my videos in the future. Don't find that behavior appropriate in real life. I don't find that appropriate in videos. If you want to discuss these subjects, I am totally game. I love commenting. You can see on past videos, I try to respond to everybody, but I'm not putting up with people doing name calling. So I just want to be upfront with that. Also in the other two videos, a lot of people start commenting and it's very obvious they never actually watched the video. So if you're going to discuss this, please watch the whole video. And finally, it is very important to have watched the Zordon era as an adult. We sometimes romanticize these characters because we only remember the things we like about them. And Zordon is definitely one of those characters that watching back kind of gives you a whole new perspective. The fan theory of Zordon being evil originated from the show's poor editing at the beginning. The production team was scrambling to get these episodes out. A lot of weeks regularly featured 4 brand new episodes, so they had to work very quickly. This is one of the arguments most people bring up, which is basically saying it's the editors, not Zordon, so by default it doesn't count. The excuse that production caused it so it gets a pass is a poor one. Famously, the Ewoks in Star Wars were going to be a planet full of Wookiees, but the costumes were too expensive, so they made smaller versions, which became Ewoks. But no one in the Star Wars fandom say, Ewoks don't exist, those are Wookiees, it's production's fault. It's part of the storyline regardless, so Zordon not telling the Rangers valuable information or not giving them proper training is a part of the show and Zordon's lore. Zordon not revealing information to the Rangers in preparation is extremely detrimental. Zordon would only reveal information when it was absolutely crucial. Some people argue that this isn't a big deal. He didn't want to give them too much information to process, or that he gave them information at the right times. But the issue is that Zordon asked 5 teenagers to risk their lives every day in dangerous situations, and he never trained them. He just let them sort of figure it out on their own a lot of the time, which is a horrible way to mentor a team. He should be preparing them for every possible encounter. That way, when they get a monster that can shapeshift or do something unique, they will know how to defeat them. Zordon also kept many secrets over time. The Rangers were surprised to learn Zordon didn't know how to create Ranger powers. The Rangers are led to believe that Zordon created the White Ranger powers for Tommy, but later when they lose their coins, he sends them to Ninjor because he can't do anything about it. He just kind of brushes it off and no one really asks, wait, but you kind of made it seem like you made the White Power Ranger. Zed, Master Vile, Rito, Lokar, Dark Spectre, or any of the powerful villains are never explained by Zordon. Had they known the vast evil out there, they might have been training more heavily. He sent them to Edenoi without explaining the Masked Rider powers, which resulted in them fighting Prince Dex. They never knew there were other Rangers in the universe until they were turned into kids and the Alien Rangers came to help them. Zordon had a relationship with Andros and what can be assumed as the original space team, and it's easy to believe he didn't lead that team successfully, resulting in most of the team's deaths. Withholding information is a manipulative tactic narcissists use to keep people dependent on them. Zordon keeping all this stuff a secret raises a lot of questions. Now, I know this is a controversial topic, and that's why I'm trying to tread lightly. The truth is, I don't think Zordon is evil in the sense that he wants to rule the galaxy. Zordon feels he is a hero with good intentions. What I do believe is that Zordon is a narcissist. He is someone who doesn't feel a lot of remorse for his actions because he feels 100% justified in doing what he needs to do to get the job done. And narcissists are great at manipulating people to do what they want. And while manipulating them, the victim feels heard or even happy to help a narcissist out. Another argument for Zordon being evil is that he uses teenagers because they are easy to manipulate. Now, most of you have seen the theme song 100 times where Zordon says teenagers with attitude. But in the actual show, he says to Alpha, send us 5 overbearing and over-emotional humans. Now that sounds a little more manipulative, don't you agree? The over-emotional part definitely plays into the idea of someone you can manipulate. People who get worked up easily can be scared into being paranoid and be controlled. Now, a lot of people argue that he only took teenagers because of the Ranger team from 1969. In the comics, the Rangers befriend Grace Sterling when trying to apprehend Fencer. They come to discover that Grace was the original red Mighty Morphin Power Ranger, something Zordon hid from them. Zordon's first team consisted of adults, all successful in their own right, more grounded than a group of teenagers. Grace Sterling was a scientist, wannabe astronaut at NASA, the Power Rangers universe version of NASA. She was on the team who helped make the first moon landing. Torona Washington was a Vietnam War veteran who had served in the military. Nikolai Chikarin was a KGB analyst. A native to the Soviet Union, he was definitely an intelligent human, as well as showing natural bravery. Daniel O'Halloran was a successful activist who protested political issues, especially the Vietnam War. And lastly was Jamie Gilmore. She was a British singer-songwriter who was in a band called The Familiars. I will admit, I don't keep up with the comics as much as I wish I did, but there is a great channel where they give you the breakdown of these comics, and I'll link the video of this issue from Comicstorian on here. Just want to give you a warning that there will be spoilers ahead. The 1969 team fought Psycho Green on the moon. He was awakened upon the moon landing and was there to free Rita. Zordon summoned these individuals and made them the first Mighty Morphin Power Ranger team. Jamie and Daniel were brutally killed by Psycho Green before he grew into his monster form. The only way he could be stopped was Nikolai sacrificing himself to save the remaining Rangers. After the battle, Grace and Torona are teleported to the command center. Enraged at being sent into a suicide mission without any training, they vow to use their powers to help the world. But Zordon demands the coins be returned. This is a very clear characteristic of Zordon. He, to some degree, admits his fault, but at the same time tells them they can't have the powers. The whole reason this team had 3 members killed was because they were summoned suddenly and thrown into battle without training. So if Zordon claims he was at fault, why wouldn't he ask them to stay and train a team that can work together when the time comes? So Zordon basically does it again. He waits until Rita appears and then he summons a new team, but this time a group of over-emotional humans. So Zordon's method really hasn't changed, he just needed younger people to manipulate. In the comics, the Rangers call out Zordon for not telling them about the former Ranger team, and he says it's part of his biggest regret. When they push that he should have told them, he said he was just trying to protect them from the past, and he misjudged them on what they could handle. This is a classic narcissist move, to tell the person, I did this or withheld information because of you, ultimately trying to blame it on the other individual, which is taking the focus off of their mistake. And when the Rangers tell Zordon they want to help Grace, he tells them he can't be involved. Once again, if they are not following his orders, then he won't help them. Part of what I observed is that none of the Rangers really have a great relationship with Zordon. When Jason returns in Zeo, Zordon and him don't really have like a heart-to-heart moment. It's a very military-like welcome back. I never felt like Jason seemed that excited to be around Zordon again, and it was more of a I'll do it to help out, but I don't really need this sort of thing. People bring up the Zeo powers and how a line in the show stated that the Zeo powers strengthen over time. This can be inferred that they are the strongest Ranger powers in the universe, so why would they ever switch to turbo powers? Well, what is different about the turbo powers that we haven't seen before? Justin the Blue Turbo Ranger was a kid, a lot younger than the other Rangers. He could morph and become a grown Power Ranger. But why did Zordon want this to be possible? At the end of the 3rd season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the Rangers are turned into little kids. They were unable to morph with their power coins as children. This shows that these powers and the Zeo powers don't allow little kids to connect to the morphing grid, but that's why Zordon wanted to experiment with a Ranger power that allows kids to become Rangers. I want to give a shout out to Jared Gillenwater. He left a comment on one of my videos and it was really well thought out, and he brought this idea to light. Zordon has the perfect cover-up because when the Rangers got turned into kids, Billy and Alpha set out to make sure that there was some way that they could defend themselves if the Rangers were turned into kids again. And so they created the turbo powers. Now, that was something that Jared pointed out. He did it really well, and I think that's a great point because then Zordon, once Billy had left, could use those powers any way he wanted, and he could start making child soldiers. What I wonder is that all of a sudden, Billy's aging starts acting up. Was that something that Zordon did to get rid of Billy so that he could use the powers without any sort of backlash from Billy? Because Billy didn't create those powers to make child soldiers. He built them as a safety guard in case something happened. If you think everything up to this point has been justified by Zordon and it's being blown out of proportion, this next one is a bit difficult to dispute. There is a throwaway episode in Power Rangers Turbo that most people don't remember or think about that much. It's such a small, insignificant thing, but it makes a massive problem in the Power Ranger universe. In this episode, the Rangers do a classic sort of clone trope, but they are not clones, they are robots that also can access the turbo powers. Now, Zordon knows a lot about the morphing grid and knows that only one person can access a specific Ranger power at once. So the fact that Zordon created a copy of the turbo powers is insane. The theory goes like this. Zordon left to go to Eltar when the Turbo Rangers got their powers. Under Demetria's leadership, Tommy, Adam, Kat, and Tanya all left the team and left a whole new set of Rangers to join Justin. This was upsetting to Zordon because he had no pull with this new team. Justin was the only member who had any loyalty to Zordon, and it was a pretty short-lived relationship. If Zordon called on this team, they would question his orders, or at least that's what Zordon believed. Copying these powers were to weaken the Turbo Rangers, and once defeated, the powers are solely used by easily programmable and controlled robot versions of the Rangers. I believe that the Turbo Rangers were weakened by the Robot Rangers because they were so easily defeated by Divatox. Divatox wasn't a mastermind. The fact that such a silly and cheesy villain actually destroyed a Ranger team leads me to believe that there were outside forces weakening them throughout their time as Turbo Rangers. Even from the grave, we learned Zordon had trained an apprentice. In the 20th anniversary season Megaforce, we meet the mentor Gosei. He has been lying and waiting on Earth after Zordon's passing with what is easily the biggest amount of power in the universe. He has in his possession the Ranger Keys. This allows the Megaforce team to morph into any Ranger in history, including the ones not seen on Earth. I have a video talking about these legendary Rangers and some fan theories that go into it. It's a fun one if you haven't seen it already. But why did Gosei wait so long to use this power? Probably because Zordon wanted it for his own use. Gosei was merely a pawn to keep these safe until Zordon could use them. But that day would never come once captured by the United Alliance of Evil. But the fact that Zordon has been working on this in secret raises a lot of red flags. One main plot point people want to point out is that Zordon's energy wave was a selfless act. The philosophical question we have to ask is, can someone with selfish intentions produce a positive result for others? I believe so. Trust me, there are plenty of narcissists in the world who do a lot of good for other people by default. But this is where a lot of people try to debunk this theory. If he sacrificed himself, he can't be evil. I do agree his sacrifice was a redeeming moment for Zordon, but in no way does it prove that every moment leading up to this was done altruistically. If anything, he knew he could stop this evil the whole time and chose to keep his powers instead of freeing the universe. So why did he tell Andros to do it? Well, Zordon was at the end. Evil had won and there was nothing he could do. This was it, and it was better to die a legend than be enslaved by evil forever. But the Z-Wave brings up a very interesting argument. A lot of people try to point out the plot hole of Zordon's wave destroying all evil in the universe, but yet there are so many other villains in the following season. It's a great point, but it was never fully stated that all evil was destroyed. In fact, Zordon's greed for power has a lot to do with this. In Season 2 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Zed makes a comment about the morphing grid balancing good and evil. Much like the Force in Star Wars being accessed by Jedi and Sith both, the morphing grid is not just used for good. In fact, there is a reason to believe that all of Rita's magical powers are accessed from the morphing grid as well. I talk about that in my Alpha is Evil fan theory video. Check it out if you haven't already. I believe that Zordon's goal was to eventually become so powerful that he could crush the forces of evil, destroying them forever. I believe his constant pull for power is what led to the morphing grid to counterbalance, motivating Dark Spectre to unite evil in the universe. But this isn't how the morphing grid works. Now, in the footage, you never actually see anything destroyed besides the Alliance of Evil itself, and in Lost Galaxy, we see the planet Onyx with a variety of henchmen and monsters. And the franchise proves there's a lot of villains out there after this. So the wave never destroyed all evil in the universe. Zordon's death was a vacuum. He knew that the Rangers couldn't win because he himself hogged too much of the morphing grid's power. When Andros shattered the tube, Zordon's wave rebalanced the morphing grid, taking out the evil in Zed, Rita, and Divatox, destroying the Machine Empire besides Prince Gasket and Archerina. The wave also spared Corone, and I believe this was destiny. She had a good heart, and the morphing grid knew she would need to be called on for the Lost Galaxy team. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, I think it's really important to watch this as an adult because you really do get a different perspective, and I think Zordon looks a lot different to people who have maybe had more life experience. I will say that in my life, I've actually had some really rough encounters with some narcissists, and when I watch this back, I see those tendencies that I've seen in those people, and it really makes me realize that, yeah, I think Zordon maybe isn't all on the up and up like we thought he was as a kid. And I'm not going to bore you with the big long story about my encounters with someone like this, but I do want to say that there have been several points in my life where I've dealt with narcissists and I have gotten rid of them out of my life, and I've decided I don't need them around if they're going to treat me like this, if they're going to act like this, and I have never once regretted it. So if you ever have someone in your life who is making you feel horrible all the time about yourself, I encourage you, get rid of them. You're not going to be sorry. You're going to be a lot happier in your life. This is a video I've been meaning to do forever because it's a big subject. It's probably one of the biggest fan theories in the Power Ranger universe, and I hope I did it justice. I wanted to make sure it wasn't just a quick throwaway video. I wanted to get through all the nitty-gritty details of why Zordon could potentially be evil, and I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Check out my other videos if you're into this stuff. I will talk to you later. Bye.